Hi, my name is Julene Allen, founder of Women for Action, a 501c3 organization which aims to tell stories about the under-recognized contributions of women innovators. You're listening to Straight Talk, No Chaser, where you can tune into independent reporting and genuine conversations. This show also funnels stories from collaborative programs such as the Lean In Ohio 100 Women Interview Series.
I guess I would have to start with my life story, and that is one of 7 children, and parents that were just loving and accepting, and I grew up not knowing any barriers or prejudice, I guess, if you will. So I knew as a young child I wanted to go into the military because I knew that it would bring me many advantages, and I looked at it as an adventure. And I also knew that with many brothers and sisters, I'm kind of on my own, and I wanted to go to college. So, as I grew up, it was during the Vietnam War, and I was a student that kept raising my hand, asking, why are we there? Because I knew the stories of the heartbreak of friends and family members that either lost a son or daughter, and members that came back, and of course struggling with PTSD. But I wanted to be a part of being involved in the military to help secure our nation. It just felt like the right thing to do for me. And I was able to get the benefit of the GI Bill. Those two things came together when I graduated from high school and decided to go into the Air Force. At that time, they were taking husbands and wives together to try to keep their recruits strong and maintaining military numbers. With that, I had pretty great experience in the military, and I found myself with a son, but as a single person. And when my term was up, I went back home to start a life and go to college. I decided to be a teacher and found my love of children and for them to really help them their potential and a great future. So I'll call how the school system needed to be modernized. In 1983, around that time, I viewed education as a little house on the prairie, one-room schoolhouse. And I'm in the military with my background in administration and personnel using computers that, wow, our children really need to be educated for a modern society. So I started getting involved in my profession, which led to my first involvement in a campaign with the school board race. Term limits were enacted, and Jack Ford was the minority leader. Jack Ford is from Toledo, and was looking for someone to run because of a position being open, and they were looking for the right candidate. And unbeknownst to me, my name was thrown into, the fishbowl, if you will. And we had meetings locally on, what kind of candidate would fit this district. It just so happened to be that women were the majority of the district. They cared about education, and we were going through the DeRoff case in Ohio, saying that we have an unconstitutional state funding formula because we rely on property tax owners to fund schools, and it was unequal. And I wanted more for the children in my classroom, and I decided to go ahead and accept, this challenge of running for office, which I've never done. In fact, running for the House of Representatives was even more of a challenge because I'd never been there. But when I looked at the components of my district and my background being, a woman, a mother, educator, a veteran, it looked like I had a chance to win if I worked hard enough. So I decided that, at the cause of helping our children in the state of Ohio have a great education in the future was greater than the fear that I had of never running before, never being in the state house, not having a clue of what legislators do every day, day in and day out. I decided the cause was greater than the fear that I had of losing or taking the chance, and I went for it.
You also serve on the House Committee for Veteran and Military Affairs. You are also a military veteran. I'm a veteran.
Yes.
And many of my
wonderful. Let's get together.
Yes, absolutely. Many of my lenient colleagues are veterans. As you may know, Lenient partnered with the Department of Defense a little over a year ago and created Lenient Military. The Lenient community recognized that support was needed for not only military women, but also for veterans. From your experience, what sort of local support do you feel is needed for women veterans? Or how do you feel Lenient can leverage the resources that is needed here in our community?
That is a great question. How can we support efforts as veterans to continue advocating for veterans and supporting the military? I've spent 6.5 years of my life either active duty Air Force or in the Ohio National Guard. And great people, just served with wonderful people, and dedicated to, the security of our nation and the safety of our community. I think that's the bigger issue here. We're not just doing this for, patriotic sense of serving in the military, which is unquestionable, number one. But the secondary issue is to provide a great community and being involved in the community and valuing our veterans is something that I feel we've turned a page on since the veterans like myself who were part of the Vietnam War. And I always say, welcome home. Always. But to value and engage those great citizens to impact change, to take their leadership one step further in the community and organize, getting to meet one another. So Julian, I didn't even know we had a connection. Awesome. I just had a conference call with a group, a national group that is implementing a very important bill across the nation because they got it done at the national level last year, and they're moving like crazy. And the majority of this group is veterans. It's the National Organization of RISE. So what they want to do is have a victim rights bill passed like the national level. So victim rights can be victims of anything, right?
Yeah.
What I see that as is our leveraging and recognizing human rights and to treat one another as a human being. That women shouldn't be treated differently than men. Children shouldn't be treated differently than a human being. Change our culture, change the rape culture. Changing the rape culture and turning that around is significant in our efforts on human rights. And I believe veterans understand this so well. And they're leaders. They're trained to be, they're already a leader when they sign up. They're willing to give their life, right?
Yeah.
But to be a leader in your community, being leaders in the military is, wonderful training for being a leader in the community and doing what comes natural. And I've discovered in my life, this is natural. Well, I'm a natural born leader. I was when I was in high school. It just fits. And now I really feel that I have purpose in my life. And that's what's important to everyone, especially veterans coming back from war, supporting them, encouraging them, being there for them, recognizing that this is, something they've sacrificed for. And that we can help them be purposeful and live a purposeful life in their community and display it and engage in making the change and not letting this, whatever it is, people call evil, it flourishes because we do nothing. And veterans know better. So I think, establishing that connection and communication and support system for veterans, supporting veterans who are doing things, and I fight for veterans issues all the time in the state of Ohio. I've done a few things. So I can go on and on. I'm not sure how long this is supposed to be, but I'm so excited because I learned how to take a challenge and being in the super minority and making a difference.
Yeah.
So I convinced myself it can be done.
Yes.
And I want to convince everyone else they should do what their heart tells them.
Well, I love to talk.
And lead where you live.
Lead where you live. I like that. So, Representative Fedor, Leading Ohio is a champion of the Equal Rights Amendment. Even though Ohio is one of the 35 states that has ratified the bill, we do not have a state-level bill for this, which there are 20 states that have something comparable. Do you think there is a possibility that something like this will be proposed in the future?
I like your question. I'm really looking forward to engaging in that successful attempt throughout the nation, and was very heartbroken when this feat was laid down. And so when I saw the opportunity to march in Washington, which I've always waited for my whole life, I took it. And I felt what a revolution feels like. So I will respond to your question by saying this. Every day, I'm hopeful that we will get there. And women in Ohio and men who are feminists, the definition of feminism includes men who support women to be equal. So I want to start that movement and end it where we're successful. Absolutely, every day I think about it, and I know that's the right way to go. It's a way to go for us to treat each other with respect, and be absolutely certain we have humanitarian hearts in our minds and in our communities, and that's what's going to change everything. Not let the evils or the terrible things in our culture maintain itself. I want to crush it, and I know we can. So there's so much more that can be done, and I feel more optimistic every day because of the signs that I see that really involve the engagement of people and their passion and saying, wait a minute, not on my watch, and I believe we can get this done. So I want to be a leader of it, engaged in it, do everything that I can to make this happen for my generation so that my grandson, who is 4, will know that his children will be better off. Because then we have, it takes a while for a ship to move and to turn. You can't turn the ship on a dime, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's planning purposefully. And I always say, I do things on purpose for the purpose of. And you can fill in the blanks and then go. And there's plenty for everyone to do. Don't have to wait to be a leader. Just start walking in it. Some people think they have to be told, hey, you're a leader. No. That's what I told the young people that were with me. And it was awesome. It was in the atrium, And as a teacher, 18 years, I felt like I was, teaching in my classroom again. But lead where you are. Everyone has something to give and to make a difference. And believing that and just starting to walk in it means you lead where you live.
What sort of advice would you give to yourself at the start of your career?
Don't be afraid. Face fear, especially with yourself, I guess. Because, I learned from being fearful, though. And I think everyone goes through that in life. So take a chance. Experiment with taking a chance. Because you build up your courage to tell fear to get out of here. I know what you're about. You're not taking me down that road because I learned. But struggle must be there for people to learn and advocacy and change to happen. So the struggle, not being afraid of the struggle, I guess. I've never run for office. I've never been to the State House. I'm thinking, no one knows my name. How am I going to get this done? I'm not going from, schoolhouse to school board. I'm going schoolhouse to the State House.
Wow.
Who the heck they think I am?
Wow.
Who do I think I am? That's what people I know would think. But I had to deal with that. And said, I don't care. The cause is greater than the fear of all that other stuff that can, pull you down and not take that step of courage to go for it. And I did. So it's just, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, I guess.
Yeah. Can you describe a good candidate for public service?
Can I describe a good candidate for public service?
Yes. What does it take?
Oh, okay. I think besides what matters to you for the betterment of our community, what issues really you discover that seem possible to make change? And do you want to be a part of change and making the world better for your generation and for your children's and grandchildren's generations? People make fun of the political world and politicians, and that was the biggest decision I had to make. It took me 5 months to get over the fact that I was an urban public school teacher, and there's a lot of negative with that. And I stand proud and clap and give an ovation for every teacher in America whenever I can. But even bigger was taking the step and being called a politician. That's hard.
Yeah.
When nobody likes you.
Yeah.
And they all think you're, scamming and scheming and not doing your job. And public service is public service as elected official and a representative in any form of democracy is very, very important. And if it were honored and people were doing it for the right reasons and there's accountability, it can be done right. And through voting and paying attention is how you evaluate, someone wanting to get involved in public service. And public service doesn't just have to be an elected official. It can be a staffer, someone who wants to be, they're really good at policy, but they don't want to do the politician end of, public service. So everyone can figure out where they fit in. Being an activist in your community is public service. There's a part and a place for every citizen in the United States of America under this framework of democracy and a republic. Just need to find it. and then decide to engage in it.
I wanted to go back to, and actually this, you kind of touched on it a little bit. It was actually one of my questions. The safe harbor law. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more for our audience?
Sure. The safe harbor law is a result of Ohio's response for trafficking our minors. Anyone under 18 is considered a minor. And the safe harbor law does a number of things. One of the important provisions in law is that a minor who is rescued through law enforcement, maybe, there was a sting and they found, someone who's being prostituted. They're never prostitutes. They're being prostituted. Will go through the court system, through the juvenile court system, and they will know their rights. They will be given a guardian ad litem who will be their advocate for them, solely for them. And they get evaluated, they get services right away. So if they're drug addicted, we now in the state of Ohio have all kinds of services to deal with drug addiction. And they will get the mental health services. I believe you cannot fully recover from being sold to be raped. You just murdered someone's soul. You've taken them below a human being. You've taken them to buying a pair of shoes. That is PTSD and traumatic the rest of their lives. It takes a lifetime to recover from that type of existence and abuse. So they go through the court system, and the judge gets to decide how long the services they'll need, and a diversion program that says you're going to be in a diversion program, receive services, not incarceration, not jail time. So the safe harbor law was put together, I'm proud to say, by the juvenile judges in Lucas County that never arrested minors to begin with, because they recognized them as victims, not as prostitutes. They were prostituted, and they're minors, so therefore they don't, as a minor, they can't give permission. It's like being kidnapped. So they treated them as a victim and provided services. It was really hard because our children's services network is not prepared, and they're still not as prepared as I would like them to be, and the judges and the advocates, to provide those concentrated trauma-informed services. And they don't have the efficient number of placement foster care home parents that are trained to handle the trauma of a victim of trafficking. So we're working toward that, which is why the commission is so important, to actively take a temperature, make recommendations, learn, talk to one another. No one is in a silo. And we've done a lot more. So we provide services instead of incarceration. The other thing that we did was we increased the penalties for traffickers to match the federal level. So that will hopefully deter the traffickers. In fact, when it first became law, I heard from law enforcement that the pimps were firing their lawyers right and left because they couldn't believe they had to register as a sex offender. The tables have turned. The thousands of years that women were always to blame for what they did. in this area of being prostituted. So I turned the table around the way it should be, that prostitution isn't a victimless crime, and increased the penalties, to all felony offenses, whether you're a trafficker, a pimp, or a buyer, a John. All felony offenses in the state of Ohio for a minor. However, we did not include 16 and 17-year-olds, so I have to go back. And now that we have a number of cases, for 4 years now, we know we are unjust to the 16 and 17-year-old minors. So I'm going back because we have enough evidence, and plus it's wrong to not include them anyway. So I had to do what I had to do to get the first one passed, and that's compromised. I know how to negotiate, but believe you me, I'm coming back. So it's now time to come back. So we provided, support for adult victims. There's so many adult women and men too who were trafficked under the age of 18. Somehow they survived it. Usually there's a 7-year lifespan for a trafficked victim. So they survived it. Either they got too old or whatever, the pimp gave them up, or they were allowed to leave. They're out there. But they served a lot of crime as far as solicitation, loitering, all this stuff they were forced to do. And even as an adult, well, they can get their records expunged, and what does that mean? They can get a job. They can start getting services. We have as many adult victims as we do minor victims, but I'm starting at the minor victim, the minor age, because that's the most severe crisis that we're in. Yeah. As far as humanitarian issues go. And, we continue. We continue to evaluate it through the Attorney General's Commission, which I put in place to allow anybody to join and have a grassroots effort and continue the progress forever. Because every generation must be vigilant to pay attention for any slavery that goes on. And there's more slavery today than there was in the time that we fought as a civil war in America.
Well, those are the questions I have for now. But we definitely should get together sometime soon.
Well, let's put some veteran women. Let's put our sister soldiers together for dinner. Just to get to know one another,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm the only woman. Well, when I joined the American Legion post, I was the only woman, and they kept trying to get.
And never miss a Straight Talk interview. Tune into Straight Talk, No Chaser.